I was running the city of Greenville and then I started hopping wood water.
Did a lot. Y'all got so quiet and then it got loud again. Welcome to the special called public hearing of the Greenville City Planning Commission for the Greenville Development Code and Zoning Map. My name is Meg Terry. I serve as the chairperson of the commission. I'm an architect and live in the North Main area of Greenville. And at this time, I will ask the rest of the commission to introduce themselves. Start with Lynn.
I'm Lynn Soulsby. I'm a civil engineer and live in the Augusta Road area.
I'm Pamela Adams, property development, live in Augusta Road area.
I'm Diane Eldridge. I'm retired. My background is in planning and conservation, and I live in the Parkins Mill area.
Jeff Randolph, real estate developer, and live in the West End.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Martinez. I'm an architect and I live in the North Main neighborhood.
Derek Enderlin, I'm an attorney. I live in the Colonel Glass Earl Historic District.
We're volunteers appointed by City Council to serve on this board. Responsibilities of the Planning Commission include preparing the comprehensive plan, conducting public hearings, and making recommendations to City Council on amendments to the zoning ordinance and map. The Planning Commission also takes action on preliminary subdivision plats, plans for multifamily development, and final development plans. If you haven't already gotten an agenda, there are copies at the desk out in the lobby. The meeting today will be conducted in the following manner. The commission will hear a report from the planning staff. I believe some of you have signed up downstairs, so we will be getting that sign-up sheet shortly. And any member of the audience past that as well will be given the chance to speak. 3 minutes to do so. I believe I'll be calling folks up as we get the list, correct? Okay. Consider appointing a spokesperson if there are multiple people wishing to speak, and out of respect for others' time and the applicants on the agenda tonight, please do not repeat the information already presented by someone else. Obviously, if you have different information, you may share that after the previous speaker has finished. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the commission may allow the applicant time for rebuttal, which in this case would be the city. Board members may ask questions of the applicant or speakers. These questions will not count toward the time limit. All comments and questions must be directed to the chairperson, who will respond and direct the question to the appropriate party for response. Any written comments submitted to the planning office before the meeting have been given to the commission and will be considered in its decision. We have a lot, so we have seen those. After all comments are offered, the chairperson will close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and the commission will discuss and evaluate the information presented in the context of the requirements of the city code. The commission will usually render a decision on the item at this meeting. However, due to the large number of public speakers, the public hearing may be continued to a date certain. If this is necessary, we will share the time and location of the public hearing continuance. The public hearing would be recessed and then resume to receive comments from those that did not speak today. It is our goal to hear from everyone this evening, if possible. Thank you again for coming. Please make sure your cell phones are silenced, and we'll have a roll call.
Diane Eldridge.
Here.
Mike Martinez.
Here.
Lynn Soulsby.
Here.
Jeff Randolph.
Here.
Derek Enderlin.
Here.
Pam Adams.
Here.
And Meg Terry.
Here. We have no approval of the minutes tonight.
Correct.
From any other? Okay.
Correct.
Is there a motion for acceptance of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
Vote by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Are there any conflict of interest tonight? No, okay. Obviously, we're here to hear about the new development code this evening and the zoning map. We will hear those items together. So we will be taking the staff report together as well as public hearing together. So, hey, Shannon.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioners. On behalf of the City of Greenville and the Planning Department, it is a pleasure to present the new Greenville Development Code and zoning map for you this afternoon. It's been a long time and a lot of work to get to this point, really beginning with the comprehensive plan update almost 5 years ago. The new development code is part of the implementation for Greenville 2040. As we demonstrated in the staff report, and we'll touch on in a few minutes, the new code truly reflects the goals, policies, and overall vision of Greenville 2040 as expressed by the Steering Committee, Greenville Community, Planning Commission, and City Council. I don't have a long presentation today. The Commission is familiar with the material. but we do want to provide as much time for public comments as possible. We will go through the major sections of the staff report, and there are a few final staff recommended changes that we will also present before we get to the public hearing. Austin, next slide. As you know, public outreach and engagement is of the utmost importance of the city of Greenville. This slide presents some of the engagement efforts that the city conducted throughout the update process for the new development code. Our outreach included public meetings, online surveys, a dedicated project website, social media, drop-in sessions and learning labs for the community to learn about the new code, monthly updates at board and commission meetings, public workshops with city council, including the city council retreat, and of course, our required public notice, including mailed postcards and over 1,000 signs posted throughout the community. The city of Greenville staff went above and beyond the state of South Carolina requirements, and every peer community undergoing a similar code rewriting process. Every day for the last 3 months, our staff has met with property owners, neighborhood associations, advocacy groups, developers, and many others to share information about the code and receive feedback. We counted 1,200 attendees at these meetings, even though the actual number is likely higher. Next slide, please. The draft code and zoning map were initially released on January 25th. The city hosted numerous public events that week, including open houses, coffee with the code, lunches with our review boards and neighborhood presidents, and finally, a half-day workshop with City Council at the Unity Park Welcome Center. In February, we launched our World Tour of Greenville. Staff presented at many evening meetings and conducted numerous daytime meetings throughout February and continuing into March. We received over 250 comments to the public input email address created for this project. Staff reviewed and evaluated each proposed change for its consistency with Greenville 2040, the overall code framework, effects on other properties, accepted planning and urban design principles, and other criteria. Revised drafts of the code and zoning maps with changes incorporated were posted online and publicly noticed on March 15, 2023. The March 15 draft is the version that Planning Commission is considering today. As mentioned, the new development code is an important part of implementing the city's comprehensive plan, Greenville 2040, which was adopted in early 2021. Greenville 2040 is the policy document that provided the overarching framework for the new code. The 3 priorities of affordable housing, open space, and transportation were embedded throughout the code, while the node and corridor framework was the driving principle behind the zoning map. The code reflects the community's desire, expressed throughout the Greenville 2040 process, to continue growing and developing, but in a well-planned and intentional way. With the adoption of the new code and maps, development will be concentrated downtown along transportation corridors and within nodes, which are walkable mixed-use centers located throughout the city, which was recommended as part of Greenville 2040. Directing growth toward these areas will reduce development pressure in neighborhoods and help preserve the character of existing residential areas. Okay, next we are going to take a look at some of the major elements of the new code. The code has been formatted to provide 2-page illustrated spreads of each zoning district. Users can review these pages, the table of uses, and zoning map to determine what they can and cannot do with their property. The new document includes many illustrations with clear dimensional standards. Once the code and map are adopted by City Council and all changes finalized, the table of contents and section references throughout the PDF document will hyperlink to the reference sections of the code, maximizing usability and document navigation. Whereas the current LMO operates on a Euclidean zoning system that emphasizes separation of land uses, the new development code incorporates many form-based code elements. The new code still regulates land uses by zoning district, but now includes standards to regulate the height, mass, orientation, and architectural elements of new development. These form-based standards help control the height, setbacks, mass, and width of buildings in residential districts, while controlling for elements such as floor height, upper story step backs, build-to requirements, and additional design features in non-residential districts. These standards provide predictability while still allowing for diversity in materials and architectural design. The number of zoning districts has approximately doubled in the new code. The new districts are presented within the code and discussed within the staff report. Staff believes the new districts will help enable the node and corridor development pattern envisioned as part of Greenville 2040 without becoming too unwieldy for the city to administer. One of the key elements of the code is the development bonus system. A developer may obtain additional height or density for a project in a certain zoning district in exchange for providing affordable housing and open space. As clarification, an applicant requesting additional height or density must comply with both the affordable housing and the open space requirements to obtain the development bonus. The development bonus is granted if a developer provides 15% of all units in their project at 80% of the area median in household income, also commonly referred to as AMI, or 10% of all units at 60% AMI, consistent with two related Greenville 2040 goals: more inclusive and affordable development and affordability throughout the city. An averaging provision is proposed to achieve even deeper levels of affordability. Importantly, the affordable housing must be provided within the development. A fee in lieu option is not currently offered, which means affordable housing units will be built throughout the city. The required affordability term was extended from 15 to 20 years in the revised March 15th draft. Compliance and monitoring will be enforced by the city's Community Development Division, and noncompliance will result in a zoning violation. Non-residential projects such as office or commercial may obtain additional building height if they pay $2.50 affordable housing mitigation fee per square foot of floor area that exceeds the base height. In addition to meeting the affordable housing requirements, applicants must also contribute to open space to obtain the development bonus. For both residential and non-residential projects, developers must pay a $2.50 open space mitigation fee per square foot, $2.50, a floor area that exceeds the base height. The code also includes a provision that would allow the administrator to accept the dedication of on or off-site real property as open space in lieu of or to reduce the mitigation fee. Key to the development bonus system is that both the base and bonus development permissions are entitled by right. This means that the developer can build the additional stories or units permitted by the development bonus without the need for a public hearing, negotiation, or special approval from a review board. An extensive public review process and procedural delays would add significant code to a project, may dissuade developers from pursuing the development bonus altogether. As specified within the Greenville 2040 framework, neighborhoods would receive additional internal protection in exchange for accepting additional height and density along corridors and within nodes. Height and density cannot be decoupled from the affordability equation, and it is elemental to the incentive structure that developers have access to the additional height and density allowances if the community is to achieve its affordable housing and open space goals set forth in Greenville 2040. Process changes. So with the by right nature of the development code and predictability provided by the new form-based standards, fewer projects will require review and approval by a board or commission. Public hearing requirements have been aligned with state law. All review board meetings will continue to be public meetings. Neighborhood meetings are not required by state law and were not initially included within the first draft. However, in response to feedback from neighborhood representatives, development public meetings will be required for many projects. The zoning administrator will prepare and publish the procedural requirements for development public meetings to the city website. When required, the development public meeting must occur before submitting the application so that the community can provide input and learn about upcoming projects. The roles and responsibility of each review board are provided in the code. The Design Review Board Neighborhood Panel has been renamed the Historic Review Board to reflect its areas of responsibility. The Historic Review Board will now have approval authority over demolitions of historic structures within the Central Business District, as well as structures in preservation overlay districts. In addition, the Design Review Board purview has expanded to encompass key areas of interest, namely Pendleton Street, the Village of West Greenville, the West End neighborhood, Unity Park Neighborhood District, and East North Street Gateway. Accessory dwelling units. The new code proposes to allow for accessory dwelling units on lots that can support them. ADUs must require with all of the zoning district requirements in which they would be proposed to be built, including setbacks, sidewall heights, building coverage, etc. In addition, ADUs are not permitted in areas where prohibited by deed restriction or HOA covenant. Units may not be utilized for short-term rentals in residential districts, as lodging uses are limited to downtown and commercial zones. Our current LMO does not specifically address short-term rentals. Instead, the city has classified them as a hotel or a bed and breakfast. The new development code specifically lists short-term rentals under the lodging use category. Short-term rentals are therefore only permitted in districts where lodging is allowed by the table of uses in the MX, MXS, BG, BH, IX, and CM districts. The original draft included lodging with up to 10 guest rooms as special exceptions in the RC districts, but these were removed in the March 15 draft. Of note, the last bullet point on this slide, there is currently a proposal in state law that would prohibit local governments from restricting short-term rentals unless their zoning code provides incentives for affordable housing. The proposed development code would meet this requirement, but our current LMO does not. If this law passes, the city may temporarily lose its ability to regulate short-term rentals until the new code is in effect. Next slide, please, Austin. Drive-throughs were initially limited in the code with the goals of reducing curb cuts and creating a walkable built environment. Greenville's development community strongly opposed this limitation and requested that they be restored as an allowed use throughout the city. Drive-throughs were restored to and added to the BG district as a permitted use and to the MX districts as a special exception. This will allow drive-throughs to most nodes and corridors throughout the city. To ensure protections for neighborhoods and in an effort to limit the impacts, new use standards for drive-throughs were added with provisions for screening, design consistency, location standards, sound limits, and more. Staff is working together with owners and operators of certain automobile-oriented uses like gas stations to look at things such as building orientation and accessory structures as car washes. Even though these refinements are not in the current code, the city is committed to working with them to improve the code for these aspects as part of future planned updates. In campus districts, 11% of the land area in the city has a proposed campus zoning classification, or CM. This applies to uses such as universities, hospitals, and major office parks. Staff has proposed new language in the staff report that would allow additional flexibility for these uses to comply with the code while also meeting their unique needs. This new section is on page 15 of the staff report. The new zoning map applies the districts from the new development code to every parcel within the city limits. At a high level, the proposed zoning map reflects the node and corridor development pattern adopted as policy in Greenville 2040. Most neighborhoods have been assigned zoning districts that match the prevailing lot pattern to limit future subdivision of parcels into small lots that would be inconsistent with the existing neighborhood rhythm. In areas where gentle density is proposed either as an affordability solution or to reflect development patterns, RNA, RNB, or RNC zoning may have been applied. RNXB and RNXC have been proposed as transition districts in certain areas between neighborhoods and more intense commercial or mixed-use districts. With their allowances for smaller scale retail and commercial uses, RNXB and RNXC have also been applied where businesses are desired in proximity to neighborhoods as well as along certain roadways where commercial development has maintained a residential scale and appearance and should remain capped at 2.5 or 3 stories. Most of the potential nodes suggested by Greenville 2040 have been given MX or MXS zoning classifications. These districts are also featured prominently on the major transportation corridors that connect the nodes. The centers of nodes provide the greatest height and then step down around the edges. The new business districts have been applied outside the nodes and along major roadways where the existing development pattern is dependent on vehicular access, such as Haywood Mall and the major commercial areas along Woodruff Road. Many of these areas have C3, S1, or PD zoning under the current LMO. BH is similar to BG, but also allows for automobile sales and services. Hence, the application of BG for the car dealerships along Lawrence Road. The special districts of CM, CV, and PK have been assigned to properties for which these districts were intended. The C4 Central Business District has been replaced with MXD and MXSD designations. Downtown Greenville will continue to serve as the central hub of the city. And while the base MXD and MXSD districts do not contain height maximums, certain areas are subject to a new height map that will be in effect upon the adoption of the new code and zoning map. The next slide, please. The height map is applied most widely throughout the West End and was informed by the West End Small Area Plan. Buildings subject to the height map may not exceed the number of stories indicated on the map. Next. This slide shows the proposed height map and the expanded design review boundary. The height map is applied most widely throughout the West End and was informed again by the West End Small Area Plan. Next slide, please. Thank you. Before we go into our other consideration and modifications, I did want to tell you that we have expanded significantly our design review boundary. The design review boundary has been expanded to include areas of Pendleton Street, both sides of Academy Street, and parts of the West End, both sides of East North Street to Stone Avenue, and for all properties generally located between Burney Street and West Washington Street, including the city-owned Mayberry Street parcels and other properties within the vicinity of Unity Park. The extension across Academy Street was made at the request of the West End Neighborhood Association. Before we end the staff report, there are a few items that staff is looking for Planning Commission to weigh in on as part of its recommendation. We also have several minor changes requested by staff for consideration. First, accessory dwelling units have been proposed in the RH districts to provide additional housing options throughout the community. At public input sessions in 2022 leading up to the new code, the majority of residents that participated expressed support for secondary dwelling units such as carriage houses, mother-in-law suites, and garage apartments, but they did not want them used for short-term rentals. As currently proposed in the code, ADUs may be detached or attached to the principal structure on the lot. Some property owners believe that ADUs should not be permitted because they are concerned it will change the single-family nature of their neighborhoods. Others are advocates for ADUs and the opportunities that they provide for families and affordable housing. Staff proposed additional ADU standards in the March 15 revised code. Additional changes are being proposed with this staff report. Staff desires feedback on adding an owner occupancy provision for either the ADU or the principal dwelling. Staff vetted this requirement with affordable housing experts, and the occupancy requirement did not seem to be an overwhelming concern that would affect affordability. Another option is to add a sliding scale for maximum ADU size up to 1,000 square feet based on the square footage of the primary home, similar to the city of Asheville. We have their chart on the next slide. We are seeking guidance concerning the ADUs. Next, Verde presented unique challenges to the consultants and planning staff because the entire neighborhood is zoned S1 under the current land management ordinance. The S1 district allows for a broad range of land uses and development types, many of which would be incompatible with the existing residential uses within Verde. Parts of Legacy Square, the commercial town center of the Verde neighborhoods, are already developed, and there is significant neighborhood interest in the remaining undeveloped parcels. Staff held many meetings with the property owners and the neighborhood representatives regarding the future zoning at Legacy Square, both before and after posting the revised March 15 map. Staff did not make any changes to the revised map, but understands that there is agreement between Verde Development and the neighborhood representatives as to an acceptable plan and zoning framework for Legacy Square height and land uses. Staff anticipates a request to the Planning Commission in the near future for an alternative zoning designation which staff will continue to work on with the developer and the neighborhood. The consultant team and staff labored to find the right zoning classification for the West End. This is a neighborhood that, due to its proximity to downtown and frontage on US Highway 123 or Academy Street, which ranges from 4 to 6 lanes, has experienced significant development in recent years. Some of the owners and residents would like to see the area remain low density and low scale, while other owners and residents are requesting more height and density in areas interior to the neighborhood. Staff has endeavored to propose an acceptable zoning configuration, which is here on the screen and was part of the March 15 zoning map. However, we understand the complexity of this area and the sensitivity concerning the zoning for this area. We would welcome additional guidance and input from the Planning Commission on this area. We received written correspondence today also about the area concerning the RNXC, which is the same as how it was presented on the map previously. That's meant to be a transition zone between the RNC and the MX3. Again, this was staff's attempt at trying to find a compromise for the zoning in this area, understanding that this may not be what ultimately results, as we are looking for Planning Commission to weigh in and provide feedback. You'll also notice that there was one change that we'll go over soon about the RNA and the MX3 at the across on the other side of Perry Avenue. Okay, additional modifications requested by staff. One change is proposed in the zoning text to the RHB standards. This is to reduce the height of accessory structures. The change was requested as part of the conversation on accessory dwelling units. This change simply makes the RHB district consistent with RHC and RHD. And essentially what that is that we lowered the sidewall and the total wall height of ADUs in RHC and RHD. Upon publication, we received input from some of our constituents and neighbors within the RHB districts that would like the same consideration. So we would ask that that would be a consideration. Staff is still thinking that the RHA can support a little bit taller structure because those lots are 18,000 square feet or larger. So we are not requesting that change for RHA, just RHB. Now we have 4 zoning map changes that staff would like Planning Commission to consider, in addition to those in the staff report. First, 215 West Earl Street was missed as part of the zoning. Throughout the zoning, we have one little piece of RNA that was stuck there that should have been RHC. This is requested with strong support from the neighborhood. Next slide. 13 Sycamore has a current split zone. Staff would like for this condition to remain so that the future commercial development would coincide with the redevelopment of adjacent parcels on Lawrence Road. This would limit impacts to the residential neighborhood to the rear. This change was requested by the property owner. Next slide. 8 Sycamore Drive across from the last property is a commercial lot where MX2 zoning is appropriate. Staff did visit the site to review the existing conditions and felt that was appropriate. Lastly, there is a parcel at 110 Dime Street in Nicholtown. Staff understands that this was previously used for small commercial uses. The neighborhood is supportive of a duplex or triplex if the structure were renovated. Staff therefore recommends an RNA zoning classification. The property owner wanted something that would allow for some also neighborhood commercial, but that's not been vetted with the neighborhood association, and we would not recommend it for this time. This wraps up our presentation. Staff is recommending approval of Z12023 with the modifications listed in the staff report and presented for the record. Planning Commission may have additional changes from the commission members or recommendations in response to comments presented tonight at the public hearing. And if I may just take a moment of personal privilege to offer some thanks. First, I would like to thank our community. The community has been really involved in this process. They've treated staff exceptionally well. This is a lot of change. We know that this is a big lift, and I want you to know how much we appreciate each and every one of you for the comments that you've provided us and the way that you've treated us with respect throughout this entire process. So thank you. I would also like to thank the consultants, including CZB, Code Studio, Ingalls Planning and Design, and everyone else for being such terrific partners in delivering this code and map on such a tight schedule. Matt and Christy are here today, right here at the front, to represent the consulting team and answer any technical questions. I would like to thank the members of our Planning Commission who are volunteers appointed by City Council for your time and for your diligence in reviewing the code, staff report, and numerous public comments on this project. I would like to thank our city council for their support of the planning staff throughout this process, for helping to share information about the code and for ensuring that their constituents' concerns were heard throughout the process. Again, to the community, the property owners, residents, developers, stakeholders, nonprofits, business owners, and citizens that came to the public session, provided thoughtful comments and feedback, and you were heard, you were listened, because that's why we have revised code, revised staff report to reflect your comments. And you helped create a better code for the city of Greenville. And a final thank you, and for me, the most significant,
You got it, Shannon.
is to our staff. The effort and dedication that you've shown this project to your work solidifies that you're the best planning team anyone could ever hope for, and you're a gift for this community. Knowing I could rely on you means more than you will know. But it's not just the planning staff that got us here tonight. Building and codes, who are our partners in all of this, so much of what happens in the city would not be possible without our building and codes team. Thank you to our community development team that embraced this process, informed us of this process, helping us to ensure that all in the community were heard and served. Our economic development team that is always ready to pitch in and to push us to think outside of the box. Thank you to our other partners, our engineering team that was a significant contributor to this document and helps make sure that these policies work and can be implemented. Thank you to our legal team to make sure that we stay in conformance with state law and out of trouble. Thank you to our emergency services team that were here tonight. And a mountain of thank yous to our neighborhood engagement manager and our communications team that has supported us throughout this entire journey, every step of the way. This has been a huge project that required much personal sacrifice. The dedication by the City of Greenville staff should not go unrecognized, and I would ask that given the opportunity, please thank them for their service. Thank you.
Can you take a few questions? Thank you, Shannon. Go ahead.
Madam
Jeff.
Chair, I got just a couple things. Can we get a copy of that presentation? 'Cause there were
Yes.
some slides on there. And then could you mention again the request of the Planning Commission regarding Verde?
Yes,
Just wanted
at
to
this
make-
time, we still are showing it RNXC, but we do anticipate in the future to have a request that may change between now and city council. Anticipating that, while I would love a vote tonight, I don't expect a vote tonight. And I know they're continuing to work together to try to find a zoning classification that works for both the neighborhood and the developer. I really commend them for working together throughout this process, because they're trying to find something that works for their entire neighborhood and also works for the development team. So I know that they are in constant conversation and still working through it, but we look forward to hopefully having something at the time, by the time you vote on that before we go to city council.
And that would be one of the proposed classifications.
Yes,
Is that just for Legacy Square, or does that include the Lawrence
just Legacy
Road?
Square.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Shannon? For now? We'll have lots of
Um,
other time.
Regarding the ADUs, a lot of the old neighborhoods have detached garages, sheds, stuff like that. Does that get calculated into square foot, or is that your one?
The
other?
living area couldn't be, well, the total, okay, it depends. So if there's an existing garage and they wanted to keep part of the garage and then the living area within it, it just couldn't be over 1,000 square feet. If it is a new construction, it doesn't matter whether it's got a garage and living unit, the total would be limited to 1,000 square feet. So we would try to work with our neighborhoods if there's existing units that they want to convert. But any new construction, whether there was 200 square feet and then 800 square feet of garage or vice versa, it would have to meet the requirements of the maximum that's been set forth.
Okay, so but you wouldn't have to tear down the old garage
No,
if you
no.
decided to build something else?
Unless for some reason it was just such a problem that it needed to be torn down. But no, we would work with them to try to convert. But that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you take the roof off and they go straight up. I mean, they would still have to meet all of the requirements such as, so, you know, if the sidewall is 12 feet on the garage and they want to take that off and go up to 30 feet, that would not be allowed. They still would have to meet the 16-foot sidewall requirement regardless.
So just to make sure, I'm saying if they just want to keep the garage, but then build another structure, is that allowed?
No, you can only have one unit per lot.
That's
No. They would either have to convert the garage or they would be unable to meet the zoning code to allow for it.
But the square footage is if it's total 2 stories, the square footage total, not the footprint itself.
That's right, not the footprint itself, it's the total square footage. That's correct.
Okay. Diane, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had one.
Go ahead.
Back, again, about accessory dwelling units. Do we have a rule, I'm scrambling trying to find it, that says one of those has to be owner occupied?
We do not, but staff did put that in the presentation. And it is something that we would be supportive of. And if the commission wanted to vote that, then we've allowed that. We've made that as one of the recommendations that was in the presentation today.
That either the accessory dwelling unit or the
Right, they would
residence
have
had
to be owner occupied for one of the units.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't pick
That's
up on
okay.
that. I was reading a letter, I think, from somebody.
All right.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So with the ADUs, if they were to build an accessory unit and the landowner stayed in that accessory unit and they rented out their main house, how is that language interpreted, or is that language assumed somewhere that might be a possibility where they stay in the smaller ADU but they rent out their house, like if their house has several different.
They have to occupy one of the units on the property.
Okay.
Doesn't matter which one, but they have
Okay.
to occupy one of the units on the property if you were to put that requirement in place.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I have a list, Austin. Do I just keep them going? Okay. So if I'm gonna really screw some names up, you guys, so I'm sorry. But if John Slipke, Spiro Konitz, Arthur Eberly, Eric Johnson, and Carla Field can come on up and get ready to speak. And if you will state your name and address before you begin, that would be fantastic.
Hello, my name is John Slipke. I live at 43 Tyndall Avenue in Greenville. I'm president of the Tyndall Avenue Homeowners Association. I've been closely following the Development Code project over the last 2 years. I've attended many of the information sessions, public meetings and workshops. I want to first acknowledge the city's planning staff and consulting team. I've been continually impressed with the professionalism and expertise of the Development Code team. I also want to commend the planning staff for the community engagement initiatives associated with this project. This has greatly enhanced information sharing, transparency, and stakeholder input. The proposed development code is a forward-looking zoning plan that will provide the necessary tools to effectively manage the future growth of the city. It will enable a more urban development pattern and greater zoning consistency. Most importantly, the code will provide a regulatory framework that is essential to the achievement of the overarching goals of the GVL 2040 Master Plan. Our Homeowners Association strongly recommends approval of the latest updated draft of the Development Code. While supporting approval of the proposed code, our association does have a concern regarding the proposed zoning district for 2 residential properties on Tyndall Avenue. I've submitted a rather lengthy statement that summarizes the Tyndall Avenue zoning districts in our area of concern. Nearly all the residential properties on Tyndall Avenue are zoned for single-family use. The exception are the 2 properties at 31 Tyndall and 33 Tyndall. Both are zoned for single-family and multifamily residential uses. Many of the Tyndall Avenue homeowners were surprised to learn of this, since both properties are single-family homes that are consistent in size and style with the rest of our residential neighborhood. These 2 properties are proposed to be in the neighborhood scale RMB zoning district. We support the utilization of the neighborhood scale zoning districts to provide more housing options throughout the city. However, we contend that the more appropriate zoning for these 2 properties is the neighborhood scale RNA zoning district. This would allow for the same variety of housing options, but with less density. This would provide for a more appropriate zoning transition in our predominantly residential neighborhood. We request your review of the proposed zoning of these 2 properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Can I ask a quick question?
One second.
Just for the record, it's my understanding, because we got all these comments, but we didn't get responses or the city's response. And it's my understanding that we can get those. So like with the last gentleman, that he's submitted his written comments, we're going to be able to review those and determine in detail whether that was responded to, answered, and everything else, right? Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Spiro Conitz, property is at 598 Pendleton Street. Everybody relax. It doesn't have anything to do with Stone Avenue. Ease attention a little bit in here. Anyway, I'm a little selfish because we've been down there since 1950, running a restaurant. Now I'm the landlord. Sasha's is my tenant. But, 20 years down the road, a restaurant may not be the highest and best use. Probably going to look like residential, because that's everything around me. There's $7 million condos, stone throws away. There's a new 5-story building coming across the street from me with a coffee store and what have you. And they figured out the drive-through. We lost our drive-through, and I said, I understand cars back up in the streets, not safe, et cetera. And I'm all for change, progress. Matter of fact, Mayor White and Ms. Fleming had me go to these churches in my neighborhood to try to sell the stadium because everybody was scared. It's going to be beer cans everywhere and what have you. But we changed it. Stadium came, it's fine. I'm just saying, I don't want my property zoning to be changed. I think we've done our time. Back, there was no such thing called the West End when I was there. It was a little rough, as a lot of people know. I've lived here more than 50 years. But the neighborhoods are solid all around us, and I would never do anything to hurt the neighborhood or put something stupid up there. I'm just voicing my opinion for my property. Everybody has their own issues, but I like to stay just like I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Arthur Eberly, and I live in the Augusta Walk area of the Greater Sullivan neighborhood, and I am the secretary of our HOA. And I appreciate the wonderful presentation that you made for us today. Thank you and the staff for all the hard work that you obviously and clearly put forth. All in all, I think our neighborhood association is very supportive of the Greenville 2040 vision and the proposed development code that you all have put forth. We are all aware of cities and different locales that have experienced sudden and maybe unplanned growth and development, and at times that has led citizens and visitors to ask, how did they let this happen? How was that allowed or permitted to be right next here to this? Or how did they not know that this was going to create excessive utilization of this playground or this parking lot or cause this congestion on the streets? And so these plans and moving forward is so important. And this is why we are very appreciative of so much of the code that says protecting neighborhoods while providing a consistent framework for growth and economic vitality is what we're after. And we're with you on that, and I would think most everybody in the room is. A stated goal of the new code is to help preserve existing neighborhoods and create transitions where neighborhoods border commercial districts. And we wholeheartedly agree with this goal, and this is why I'm here. We have existing residential properties on Augusta Street that border our Augusta Rock neighborhood. In fact, the code requires them to have a door that faces Augusta Street, or at least looking like a door. And so we would like to ask that these residential residents not be allowed to have a zone change in which a business such as Sully Steamer, 8th State, Smiley's Listening Room, or a drive-through, which is now going to be permitted with MX2, is permitted. We really believe that the RNX district, which is allowing a limited commercial use, as she's pointed out, and is the purpose of a transition between neighborhoods and districts with more intense residential and commercial development. We think that, even as outlined by you all in the goals, would be the most appropriate. And so we would like to ask for a transition code such as RNXB, like what is seen on Mills Avenue, and recently also applied with this most recent update to the other end of Augusta Road, rather than what is proposed for these residences now, MX2. There might be some consideration given towards whether or not this was previously a MX or a C2, and I guess we're C2, but I don't think what previously was apparent should really matter. So I appreciate your consideration of making this change. So hopefully someone won't ask, how the heck did they let that go next to these homes?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Eric Johnson? If Carla Field, Joyce Murphy, Albert Horrigan, okay. Y'all will just be on deck ready. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, first, I want to thank all of you for your volunteerism here. It's very much appreciated by the community, I'm sure, and myself. I want to address ADUs. Undeniably, ADUs will increase density and the risk of flooding in North Main. Section 5 of the code says stormwater, it actually says this in the code, stormwater runoff and local flooding impact adversely on safety, property, and welfare of residents. It says the city needs to upgrade its stormwater management, and continued growth in the city will contribute to the need for improvements in stormwater management. Quote. So what's being done? More buildings, ADUs. In 2013 and 2014, infill development on Mountain View and Buse covered permeable surface with homes, driveways, and walkways. In August 2014, floodwater runoff killed 2 people, destroyed Pete's Restaurant on Stone Avenue. With ADUs, 40 to 45% of smaller lots can be covered by buildings, not including walkways, patios, pools, driveways, and other impervious surfaces. Added together, yards can look like mostly concrete slabs. Drywalls and French drains are suggested solutions, but they must flow somewhere, probably into your neighbor's yard. Covering permeable land with ADUs means more stormwater runoff. A study by Johns Hopkins University shows every 1% increase in impervious surface means 3.3% increase in flooding magnitude. At 9 Russell Avenue, a storm drain had water flowing through it for 13 years, even when there was no rain for up to 3 weeks. Greenville Water claimed it was spring water, but testing found that over 62 million gallons of city water, treated city water, more than $368,000 worth of chlorinated city water had run into Richland Creek over 11 years. And that was one leak. In 2011, 1 block away, 3 water main patches were made just 65 feet off of McDonald Street. Around the corner, there are nearly 30 patches in 1 block of Elizabeth Street. Those red marks, those are all patches to our infrastructure in North Main. 2-inch water line. That's it. Supplies the whole neighborhood. The water system needs to be upgraded before adding ADUs. Page 173 of the code allows only one entrance on only one main street every 50 feet, forcing the use of shared driveways and common walkways and patios. Page 8 of the code says the city is not responsible for enforcing the private covenants and restrictions required for shared driveways and common areas. I'm currently involved in a $7,000 shared driveway lawsuit because a neighbor tried to claim a driveway that has a protective covenant on it already since 1986. ADUs can be up to 1,000 square feet on lots as small as only 25 feet wide. Projections, overhangs, and allowances can whittle setbacks down to only 2.5 feet from a property line. Sidewalls can be 16 feet high and roof peaks 20 feet high. So much for privacy at your backyard barbecues. Try growing a garden in the shade of a 2-story ADU.
Thank you, sir. Eric Johnson. What? Sir, can you just state your name real quick before you, Eric Johnson, correct? Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
I'm Carla Field, live in North Main on Russell Avenue. Thank you so much for the hundreds of hours that have obviously been put into this plan, and so much of it is so very good, and we do appreciate your effort. What we're really unhappy about, as you can guess, are ADUs. Jamming additional housing into heirloom neighborhoods behind existing single-family homes in many ways is worse than the old infill guidelines that communities followed. And it seems a little disingenuous for us to be worried about affordable housing in North Main. We just got notice that McLean Court has been taken over by a Charleston-based real estate company who plans to build 32 luxury townhouses there. So we had one little section of North Main that was actually affordable housing. That'll be gone because this developer will change it completely. We really feel strong we don't need more density in the city, especially in the older neighborhoods like North Main. We already have outdated, inadequate drainage, stormwater drainage. We've had a bunch of terrible sinkhole incidents. One of them that I could tell you about personally, we have a city-owned drainage pipe that runs through our property. It had separated underground, made a huge underground sinkhole, and I'm innocently mowing my lawn as I fell into the sinkhole and was hanging in space, held up by my elbows, trying to keep my lawnmower from running over me, and had to sue the city to pay for the surgery that I needed to repair myself after that. When that happened, I called Wayne Owens with Stormwater Division, and his answer to me was, well, we can't fix everything, we just wait till it's broken and then we take care of it. When you're the broken thing, that was not a good answer. Also, before adding more housing to Greenville's already relatively crowded older neighborhoods, we've got to have a better protection in place for our trees. The current tree ordinance is a dismal failure. We had a new neighbor move in who immediately began cutting down century-old trees, one that was about 80 feet tall, about 4-foot trunk. And I asked her if she had permission from the city to do so. She told me they had given her the go-ahead. So I called Edward Kinney, and he said, well, basically residents can do pretty much whatever they want with trees on their property. So you want to put up an ADU, just cut down those trees, it's okay. It's nice to think the ADUs would be just extra housing for family, a granny flat, a college student coming home or whatever. But without the owner-required occupancy clause that, thank God, y'all are considering that, without that clause, realtors will see this as a land grab opportunity in the heirloom neighborhoods in Greenville. Don't anybody kid themselves. That's who's going to want the land. So I believe it's really, really imperative that we have that clause in there that either the ADU or the main dwelling must be occupied by the owner. It's the only thing that's going to save us from being overdeveloped. The average yearly rent in North Main for 1,000 square feet is about $19,000 a year. Under affordable housing guidelines, that would require a salary of $63,000 a year.
Thank you, ma'am.
The people who need the housing in our neighborhoods don't make that kind of money in Greenville.
Thank you. All right. We can have Albert Horrigan, Amy Santana, Gerald Thomas, and Grant Cothran, ready to go. Name and address, please.
My name is Al Horrigan, live at 611 North Main Street. I'm president of the Noma City Terrace Homeowners Association. I had originally decided to come here and oppose because of something that we saw on the original map. Working with the staff, they made the changes that we all feel good about. And having been a city councilman in Park City, Utah, and serving on 2 planning commissions in different states, this is the best staff action I have ever experienced. They've been listening, everything that we asked them, they've responded, and particularly Leslie Fletcher. She did a great job. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Santana?
Can I ask a quick question while we have a break? So are there any regulations about ADUs right now? If I want to build a guest house, can I build a guest house on my property?
You can, it cannot be function as a full unit, so it can't have certain electric that would allow for ovens, washer and dryers, et cetera. So it would essentially, you could have a detached structure that had a bedroom in it and a bathroom, but it wouldn't be able to have a full functioning kitchen, et cetera.
Okay.
Detached. Detached.
Detached or can be attached with a breezeway.
All right. Is Amy Santana here? Okay. Okay. Jerry Old Thomas? No? Grant Cothran? And behind Grant, we'll have John Warner, Lydia Freud, Teresa Webster. Name and address, please.
Hi, Grant Cothran, 33 Linear Drive in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. At 2 recent neighborhood meetings, city staff were very clear that this development code is a living document, that it should be reviewed periodically once a year and updates should be adopted. And in that spirit, I'm very much in favor of approving the development code, even as we continue working toward perfection. So it is okay to be in favor of something and still have criticism of it. And so while I do believe this should be adopted, I have 2 real examples of how we might continue updating for the future. So pertaining to ADUs, that is the topic of the night. My mother-in-law is a retired teacher. She moved to Greenville to care for 2 young grandchildren, and we've been looking for 2 years for something close by. This plan actually has its desired effect. It keeps me on my own property from building an ADU because of some more stringent setbacks and so on. But if a neighbor wanted to build one, it could help us both out. I have a very steady tenant who parties until well into the 8 o'clock hour. So I know that there are very real concerns in this room about ADUs. I want to avoid hypotheticals. I would recommend that as we move forward, we create like a community task force that studies the real impacts of ADUs in other communities. To your question just a moment ago, sir, nothing, like I can't build an ADU today, but I could build a garage. And as soon as the inspector leaves, I go and install the oven, which is exactly what people are doing. So let's just make this above board. So the second example pertains to high density development and the lack of nuance between MX zones. I've spoken about this before. As one very basic example, the village of West Greenville and the Lawrence Road corridor have nearly identical MX zones in this new map, though they could not be more different in terms of their neighborhood characteristics, and this is really important, existing infrastructure. So I would also like to see the immediate creation of a node-specific development plan or development plans for each of these that leverages that character and that infrastructure. I believe in Greenville 2040. I think that the time to pass it is now, and I think that we need to continue to plan to make updates. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Warner. I live in the Davenport, which is 400 East Washington Street, downtown. The Davenport is a residential building that's over a century old, and the proposal is for it to be zoned RC3, and I'm here to strongly support that proposal. We have a master deed, and when the building was renovated in 1989, all units were restricted to be exclusively residential. The building was owned by a law firm, and in 1991, the master deed was amended to allow units on the ground floor and the basement to be used as business offices, including law offices. That does not mean they are lodging or a short-term rental. So everyone that's a unit owner today at the Davenport has agreed to this master deed that is either exclusively residential or business offices. And RC3 would allow those uses, which we've all agreed to already. What would be excluded is lodging. And that's incredibly important because if we had a commercial zoning and over a quarter of the units were short-term rental, that Davenport could be considered a hotel. And if it is, it's an old building. It cannot be renovated to a hotel standard. There's no elevator. It's 3 floors. Parking is 2 blocks away. We have a relatively new sprinkler system, but it's not up to hotel standards. So it's a very distinctive, unique building in Greenville. And when some unit owners have asked for exceptions for short-term rentals, the Zoning Review Board has acknowledged that it's an exceptional building, and they've denied all the requests so far. So we think that, I think that RC3 is the right zoning for this. I appreciate Shannon and her staff listening to our concerns and getting us there, and I just am here to support that and encourage you to support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Lydia Frood, sorry. No? Teresa Webster? Okay. There's more? Okay. Hope Smodel? It's not, sorry. Hope, I don't know how to say your last name. Okay. Steve Mills? Nora Horn? Oh. The Steve? Okay. Go ahead. If you'll state your name and address.
My name is Hope Juvelakis Schmalzel, TZ for short. I reside at 23 Fisher Road, which is in the county. However, I do own property on Stone Avenue, and I also own property on North Pleasantburg Drive in the city. So I just first of all would like to say thank you to the Planning Commission. You have done a super job. And I want to say that I am in favor of the codes. I think you're doing, can you hear me? Okay. Okay. I think you're doing a great job, and just want to say thank you very much. I also like the idea on the codes where you're saying existing businesses will not be required to make adjustments. I think that's important so that they don't have to turn around and redo everything they've done in their businesses when the codes come into play. I'm also representing another, I'm a commercial broker, so I'm representing another client who has property on Gurley Avenue and Waters Avenue on the straight on Malden and Gurley Road. So it's not on your, it's not in your codes right now. It's not on the maps, but we would like to recommend that that's included on your rezoning processes. 7 Gurley and Malden Road. So that's all I wanted to say at this point. I just wanted to say y'all are doing a great job, and thank you very much for the time.
Let me clarify something. You said it's not on the map currently?
It's on the map, but it's not in your zoning areas.
It's not in the city?
It is in the city, yes. It's on Malden Road and 7 Gurley Avenue. It's right off of Augusta Road, right behind the QT station off of North Pleasantburg.
So how has that not been?
They've asked for a change that we.
Oh, wait, yeah,
we
we've
didn't
asked for.
propose.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, we've asked for a change in zoning
Change
from
in zoning.
R6 to MXZ, sorry. Didn't explain that part.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Name and address, please. Thank you.
I'm Steve Mills. I live at 41 West Hillcrest Drive in the North Main area since 1988. I'm representing the North Main Community Association, Delwood Neighborhood Association, Donna Ryan, and White Oak Neighborhood, Bruce Bohemus. We comprise over 2,300 households out of the 21,000 households in the city of Greenville. There are many good items in the code with the addition of node concepts, size, height, form requirements, as well as improvement in lighting in 3 ordinance sections. The code should enable the city staff and developers to clearly know what they can do and cannot do, which will reduce the need for variance requests to the BZA and Planning Commission. I would like to recognize Shannon Laverne and the city staff, excuse me, who have been very eager to meet and work with us, though we certainly don't always agree. But I want to recognize them for being very professional in their jobs. There are 2 areas that will severely degrade the existing single-family neighborhoods. Essentially, we're changing the zoning to multifamily. You can call it what you want, single-family with ADU, but an ADU is another living building. So the whole zoning code in the city is changing to multifamily. And then allowing larger home footprints. So I started with this process back in 2020 with the infill committee. And at that time, we said no to multifamily and ADU additions in the older neighborhoods. That committee went away, then started the process that has resulted in this current code. I participated on that also. And in those meetings, there was some discussion of multifamily and ADUs, and there were some surveys that we filled out. I took the consultants around the neighborhood to show them where we lived, how we lived, what the neighborhood would look like. And I was very surprised when the code came out and that all the RH A through D zoning codes contained ADUs. The privacy and well-being and not wanting rental units in our backyards of our neighbors will be infringed upon, and our quality of life will be reduced. Most of the lots in North Main are 1/4 acre or smaller and 150 by 50 wide, 150 long. The density is already quite high with very little space left for parking and privacy. So I'm going to run out of time. We have sent out a survey in North Main. We're waiting for the data. We'll provide it. Most of the feedback I get on a personal level is no. I've had one unequivocal yes. 85% oppose in Delwood. And I don't think the city has done due diligence in collecting data from the actual households.
Thank you. All right, Nora Horn, and then Pamela Free, and Gage Weeks. Nora Horn.
Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Free, and I currently live at 1203 Shadow Way in Greenville. I'm the president of the Davenport Homeowners Association. Excuse me. But I'm addressing you as an owner of a unit at the Davenport Apartments. I was born and raised in Greenville, and as a child, I always admired that building. It was a beautiful brick apartment, residential apartment building, sitting on the corner of Church and East Washington. And I was ecstatic when my husband and I had the opportunity to buy a unit there and purchase it 23 years ago. It was our Greenville home. I want to thank the planning department for identifying the Davenport and the parcel of land that it occupies as residential at this point. You may know the Davenport was developed by C.D. Davenport, a Greenville County businessman, and designed by J.T. Lawrence, a Greenville architect. Construction was completed in 1916, and the Davenport served as one of the first, if not the first, downtown apartment building. The Davenport sought to provide housing for middle-class businessmen and their families and other professionals working downtown. The building is largely unaltered and is architecturally significant as a local interpretation of early 20th century architecture. The Davenport was added to the National Historic Register in 1982. It is one of only 14 Greenville residents that are on the National Historic Residence, and it is the only building that's distinguished itself by being a continuous, multi-unit residential for the last 107 years. In 1985, the Davenport was converted to Greenville's first downtown condominium complex. It consisted of 25 units that were restricted exclusively to residential use. Currently, 15 of those units are owner-occupied, and several of these units have served as the primary residence for owners that have lived there from 6 to 29 years. We're talking about people that have made the Davenport home for as long as 29, 27, and 25 years. Currently, 10 units are occupied by long-term renters, and 6 of those folks have been in that community for more than 3 years. While the growing number of investors looking to turn an easy profit, we've had issues with owners operating unpermitted Airbnbs.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ask a question.
Hold on one second. We've got one question.
Ma'am, so are you in support of what the proposed classification?
Planning Department's current RC3 recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Gage Weeks. I'm representing Hollingsworth Funds at 124 Verde Boulevard. I'm also a city resident at 138 Fair Circle. As many of you are aware, we're a $400 million philanthropic organization focused on ensuring a vibrant, just, and inclusive Greenville. Also the landowner of Verde, the 1,100-acre master plan community bordered by 85 Lawrence Road and Woodruff. And also the parent company for Verde Development, which is obviously charged with overseeing and executing the development. Obviously want to add my thanks to Shannon and her team. She's worked really closely with us to seek some consensus around a lot of solutions to the code. Given the size and scope of our land as an S1 single, or actually I should say moving from a single S1 zoning classification to 12 new classifications presents both a challenge and an opportunity for us, I think. We're making a lot of great progress, but we also still have some work to do as well. I'm here today really just to set the context for the opportunity before us, and I've got some colleagues from Verde Development to outline some of the specific changes. Look, I think Verde's got an opportunity to really help the city create its next generation destination, a vibrant, inclusive, mixed-use, mixed-income district that can serve the current and future growth of Greenville. We're a single landowner with over 600 acres remaining to be developed or redeveloped, making us the largest node in Greenville. We're also a charitable foundation with a real estate subsidiary, both of which share the vision for GVL 2040 with more affordable housing options, reliable and efficient transportation, open space, and of course, living wage jobs. Hollingsworth has contributed more than $100 million since its inception back into the community to help people get ahead by addressing those very issues. And, we've also undergone a really significant shift from a prior mandate of really selling land to raise money for our endowment to really rethinking about how our real estate can contribute to the future growth of Greenville in a meaningful and inclusive way. And over the past couple of years, we've taken the majority of our real estate actually off the market, while also working collectively with the city, community stakeholders, and others to reimagine really what's possible for Verde, especially along Lawrence Road, which really resulted last spring in unveiling a bold new vision for the 90 acres between Haywood and Big O Dodge. There are a number of changes that we want to see in order to really kind of deliver on this vision. Most importantly, we really need to get the right combination of base height for mixed-use classifications along Lawrence Road, combined with a workable bonus height incentive that allows for a financially viable development. And we know that height and density alone aren't going to close the gap on affordable housing and open space needs. But without it, we're going to limit our ability to meet, let alone exceed those goals. And so we're definitely committed to that. And preferably, we'd like to be exceeding the GVL 2040 goals. It's just part of who we are as an organization and part of the new mandate from our board. So we come to you all certainly in partnership and ask that you help us unlock the potential that'll benefit us all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Dan Klausner, Inga Blackett-Rikers, Sherry Barrett, Kathy Dodson.
Dan Klausner, 6 Roanoke Way. I'm the CEO of Verde Development, and my comments are quick following on what my colleague Gage laid as the foundation. In order to focus on realizing the reimagined vision for Lawrence Road corridor, we feel the following changes in the zoning map are optimal. Welcome Center, the area between Lawrence Road between Haywood Road and Woodruff Road needs to be changed from MX2 to MX3 as suggested in Friday's planning staff report. Marketplace, Lawrence Road from Woodruff Road to Marketplace Drive needs to be changed from MX3 to MX5. Verde Commons, Lawrence Road from Marketplace Drive to Big O Dodge needs to be changed from MX3 to MX5 as suggested in Friday's planning staff report. The land along Swamp Rabbit Trail, located between Trailside and Below Apartments, needs to be changed from RC2 to MX2 as suggested in Friday's planning staff report. This allows for some of the retail presence suggested along the trail. Density precedents for Welcome Center, Marketplace, and Verde Commons will set the growth pattern for future development at Verde Village and Bonaventure, our properties along Lawrence Road closest to the I-85 interchange. The land at Lawrence Road and I-85 is the ideal site for a future corporate headquarters within the city. The zoning classification providing more flexibility on height will need to be implemented at I-85 and Lawrence Road in order to lure these types of users for a shovel-ready site. I'm kind of going in the opposite order. I'd like to say, there's been a lot of great elements in the draft documents, and planning has been more than gracious with us on time. I think out of the 1,200 visits, we may have taken 10% of those. I don't know. But they've been very welcoming of construction ideas as the draft has evolved. As you can see by the number of comments that were put in the Friday's planning staff report. I applaud the staff for listening intently, thinking openly, and making productive changes where necessary, as you can see by the staff report. Really just like to reiterate what Gage spoke up about, that we are indeed committed to meeting and preferably exceeding the Greenville 2040 plan. That is a mandate from our boards, both VDI and Hollingsworth Fund. We look forward to the partnership and work that is necessary for transforming an existing auto-oriented suburban corridor full of underutilized commercial into Greenville's next generation destination.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
My name is Inge Flackett, that's I-N-G-E, and I reside at 205 Welling Circle in Greenville. I'm speaking on behalf of the community leaders for Belhaven Village, Belhaven Towns, Braden, Manor, and Ruskin HOAs. The topic I would like to address is the future zoning of Legacy Square in Verde. Verde Development, or VDI, has shared a draft plan for Legacy Square with the community leaders. This development draft is in keeping with the desires of the community for the following reasons. 1, it's less dense by nearly half of the residential units than the proposal of spring 2022, which was presented to the community at that time. 2, it is respectful of adjacent property owners. 3, it honors the neighborhood's request for high-end residential. 4, it honors our request for limited building height, adequate surface parking without the need for parking decks or garages, and the concept maximizes green and open space. And lastly, it also provides an optimized scenario for retail, office, and current business expansion in Legacy Square. We agree with VDI that the current zoning code of R and XC will not support a development plan of this nature. We also acknowledge that there is not a perfect zoning code that will allow this concept plan to be built by right. For these reasons, we are very interested in working with the city and VDI to come to an agreement through deed restrictions and CCRs that will allow a more comprehensive zoning code with proper protection in place for owners and residents. Our request to you is as follows. We would like the Planning Commission to recommend that the City Planning Department continue to work with VDI and the community leaders to revisit a more favorable zoning classification for Legacy Square. We appreciate all you do for the city of Greenville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Name and address.
My name is Sherry Barrett. I live at 5 Calhoun Hill Way in the city of Greenville. This evening, I'm here speaking in support of item Z-1, 2023, on behalf of Upstate Forever, 507 Pettigrew Street in Greenville. Thank you, commissioners, for your service and for the opportunity to speak. We strongly urge you to advance the 315 Planning Commission draft Greenville Development Code. Once adopted, the draft code's zoning reform strategies and updated provisions for zoning reform strategies and updated provisions for stormwater management will shape a more resilient, inclusive, sustainable Greenville. Now is the time. Though not perfect, once adopted, the draft code will codify regulations that are intentional about their purpose to move us past the archaic patchwork of sprawl-supporting development regulations currently in place and toward the more sustainable urban form envisioned and necessary to reach the bold goals laid out for our city in GVL 2040. We appreciate your thoughtful review and consideration of our written comments that you received, that we submitted Monday. And those include suggested modifications. As you deliberate your recommendations to City Council, we hope you'll consider those. But this evening, I want to emphasize the strengths of the new code and those strengths, how they will play out once it is developed. So these are some of the strengths of the new code from our perspective. The draft code directs most new development to key nodes and corridors and a wider mix of residential and non-residential uses in MX and MXS zoning districts. The draft code creates more opportunities for gentle density, much needed to support mobility options and affordable housing choices. The draft code encourages missing middle housing types, which are house-scale buildings with multiple units in walkable areas. These are encouraged in zoning districts that can create more opportunities to address gaps in housing stock and expand housing choices, build pockets of gentle density that can better support transit and create more inclusive neighborhoods. Additionally, by allowing one accessory dwelling unit by right per lot in residential districts, the code encourages more viable housing options.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And I want to thank planning staff and all of you for your excellent and outstanding service to our community.
Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Catherine Dodson, and address is 108 Lake Crest Drive. It's in the Stone Lake neighborhood of Greenville, downtown Greenville. First of all, commissioners, thank you for your continued time and everything that you do for the city. Shannon, staff, y'all are bar none so professional and amazing to get feedback and ask questions. So everything I say today, I do have 3 things I'd like to bring up, but please know it's in the highest regard. So I know that the new zoning is very complex, and I'm not here saying I know everything, but rather the latter. But I do know my neighborhoods, and I know the families that live in them. I work and breathe, I teach, I own a small business, all in the North Main community. I've been president of the Issaquena Park neighborhood and currently president of the Stone Lake neighborhood. So as you move forward to increase the density in residential neighborhoods, and as Steve Mills said, making everything multi-use and neighborhoods, I want the board and the commissioners to please consider 3 things. One, I know Shannon, you mentioned this, so I appreciate this, but I want it to be at the forefront that current covenants in neighborhoods must be protected. So I want to make sure, I know that Stone Lake has one already, and I want to make sure that those covenants are protected. It's protected from being a multi-use. And I would ask other neighborhoods to go back and see if your neighborhoods have covenants already in place that are in direct conflict with the proposed plan. The covenants must trump any new zoning. Secondly, it's brought to my attention actually today, I did not know this because my husband knows I am not an insurance gal, but that as we increase density in the city, it also increases insurance rates. So I'm asking for the city to be very transparent in insurance policies that any ADU or in effect will directly affect people's pocketbooks. And that must be transparent. So someone mentioned some beach properties that as they moved into multi-use, it severely impacted insurance policies. So just want to throw that out there. But most importantly, as the new zoning is packing our neighborhoods with density, I ask that we are proactive instead of reactive with the safety. I've not heard yet any safety concerns for street parking, for sidewalks, we know that it's a 3-year process in order to slow down traffic in areas. My own family was personally affected when my 8-year-old son, who's now healthy and 14, was hit by a car that was speeding through a neighborhood. We do not need accidents to happen if we're not protecting. I know businesses, when they go in, they have to protect their neighborhoods. They currently have to put in wider sidewalks, street lighting, all the safety mechanisms. I ask if any ADUs go in that we consider that there's a permit to protect neighborhoods and the neighbors that live in them. So thanks again for your time. Sorry.
All right, we have Daniel Case, Sherry Sutton, James Ryan, Brian DeBruin. Name and address, please.
Hello, James Ryan from 9 Railroad Street in Greenville. I want to thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for the committee. We really felt listened to. Thank you very much. I want to represent the Green Line Spartanburg Street community, which is between the North, East North Street, and I dare to say Stone Avenue. People freak out. Talk about Stone Avenue. But I support the new 2040 plan because right now, I'm not going to speak for my notes. Right now, the zoning is you can build $1 million house where we are, and you can build a 7-story apartment building. We want to go back to the single-family home units. And I think they are listed as RHD, I believe. The families, I got married in 75. I met my parents. They lived in this home. The person before them, she was a single mulatto lady that bought 3 lots between 1918 and 1920, built a home there, and the community started supporting itself. They were respectful of each other, and not saying we don't need those things in Greenville, but in our neighborhood, we want to keep it to a single-family residential home. And I have the families that's been there for over 50 years, the Richardsons, the Johnsons, the Drummings, the Loves, and my wife's name, the Singletons. So I want to thank you for listening to me. Again, thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian DeBruin. I live at 2 Kinderwood Court in Greenville, South Carolina. In addition to being a resident here in the city, also lucky enough to practice law here. I'm a land use and entitlement attorney. Generally speaking, from the first draft to now, I'm in favor in large part of this new code and the classifications. I do have a few concerns. I know some of the more mature neighborhoods are concerned about density. I'm also concerned about density, but when it comes to affordable housing, specifically in areas that have been significantly gentrified and changed. And then really a couple points to the code itself and more of the technical details. The first being the affordable housing bonus for home ownership. I thought it was great that we changed the appreciation cap from 3% and we got rid of that entirely. The idea that someone could buy into what will most likely be the most important investment of their life and that they would be capped at 3% annually of that revenue or that income. Getting rid of that I thought was a great thing. However, having a shared equity agreement with the city, I also don't think that that helps. So having an affordability bonus to a developer is great. Having a density bonus to a developer is great. But instead, now we're asking the resident, the homeowner, to sacrifice part of that investment at some point in time when they sell that home. So again, I'd ask staff to look at that. In addition, the next thing is the affordable bonus and density bonuses when it comes to height. Two things. One, I think the rent cap in change for going above by right zoning and having to have affordable units in exchange for that, I think is an effective solution. However, doubling that up with an impact fee for open space, I think is disproportionate to our developers, especially when we're talking about mixed use sites. A lot of times those mixed use sites, not only is the resident working in and around the city of Greenville, but also the shopping center, the retail component, a lot of times it's a small business owner that works and lives here in the city. That cost is going to be passed on to that business owner. I think you can see it on Main Street. If you walk down the street today, when you come back next April, a lot of the shops and a lot of the store owners are going to be different. That's because rents just continually go up. And one of those reasons is the lack of supply. So having a more proportionate impact fee for open space, if I want to build my own single family home, I'm in favor of myself paying an impact fee in proportion to that square footage and carrying it across whether it's a development for me as a single family homeowner or as a developer in large. So generally speaking, again, I like where the direction this is going. I think there's a lot of things still to be tweaked, but affordability being kind of on the forefront should be considered. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Richard Jackson, Bill Runge, Greg Carter, Atticus Lindsay. Go ahead. Is Richard Jackson? Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Meg, I've got some handouts, like I said. I just give those to Austin.
You can pass them around, that's fine.
My name is Bill Runge. I reside at 9 Parkins Point Way in Greenville, South Carolina, in the city limits. Just want to say I've been in commercial real estate for the past 32 years, and I've seen a lot happen in Greenville. And I want to say kudos to Shannon and staff and commend them for all of their tireless efforts over the last several years of creating a new roadmap that Greenville needs, and I acknowledge that. I wanted to say, too, that I agree that Shannon and staff have been accessible. When I first learned of this ordinance, the development code, I saw a lot of necessary and great updates, but I also had some ongoing concerns over some specific tunes to restaurants, the allowance of drive-throughs, and the overall site design governance by the city of Greenville. We were able to meet with Shannon and staff, and we were able to sit down, and I was able to express my concerns to her in a meeting about a month ago, and she listened, and they were open to our point of view and pledged and to consider and incorporate our concerns where they could, and they're reflected in the updated version before you today. In fact, they expanded the allowance of drive-throughs in the zoning classification of MX2, MX3, and MX5. They also addressed and resolved concerns that we had regarding our real estate marketing signs as an industry. But unfortunately, they did not change the balance of my concerns. And in fact, they added more restrictive language with regards to the governance of drive-throughs. I think it's important to note that COVID taught us a lot of things. It also taught fast food restaurants, quick service restaurants, how you want to classify them as an industry, that drive-throughs became the preference of the customer consumer versus dine-in seating. In fact, I would argue that today's marketplace dictates that most fast food concepts won't even consider a site without a drive-through and the ability to put in a drive-through. Due to the size and scope of this code, I would request that y'all table it for 90 days in an effort to have focus groups of specific industry disciplines, i.e. architects, engineers, residential developers, commercial developers, to afford them an opportunity to sit down with the Planning Commission and the city planning staff to further discuss in detail our ongoing concerns. I feel finally, as we are all going to allow this new code to govern our community long-term, as good stewards of our community, we need to take the necessary time to adequately review and vet this code and those affected both short-term and long-term. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Greg Carter. And behind Greg will be Atticus Lindsay, Steve Simpson. Okay. Atticus Lindsay. Okay. Steve Simpson. Renee Lean. Sheila Rogers. Amy Ashley. Katie Smith. All right, behind. She went the long way. That's okay. Name and address, please.
My name is Sheila Rogers, and I reside at 385 South Frontage Road in Fountain Inn, but I'm the owner of some property in Greenville in the city. At Waters and Gurley Avenue, the property that Hope TZ was talking about. And I just want to say I'm highly in favor of rezoning my property.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Name and address.
Hey, I'm Katie Smith. I live at 31 Riverside Drive, and I want to echo all of the thanks and praise for the planning staff and how responsive you've been. And I really want to thank everyone here tonight, because I feel like this process, what makes it effective is everyone's input and you all trying to negotiate all the differences of opinion that we have and make it into a document. So thanks so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to comment tonight. I've lived in Greenville since 1995, and I served on the GVL 2040 Comprehensive Planning Committee. I'm thrilled to see elements of the plan turned into policy as the development code process moves forward. The biggest thing we heard in that process again and again was that people want to preserve and create more affordable housing. They want more transit, biking, and walking opportunities, and they want to preserve green space. The revised code does a lot to make that happen, and as we heard throughout the entire comprehensive planning process, all of the elements of the code need to work together to fulfill those objectives. So here's a few things that today I want to lend my support for. I do support the codification of accessory dwelling units. Because these units must comply with setback and stormwater requirements, it means they're a way to create more opportunities to live in the city by tucking them in existing neighborhoods where it makes sense. There are numerous dwelling units throughout the city and older neighborhoods. Further restricting their use against short-term rentals and to be owner occupied in part means that they're genuinely housing and thus a part of our community and not vacation properties. I also support other missing middle opportunities like townhouses, duplexes, courtyard apartments, and the like. Regarding transit, walkability, and bikeability, these objectives are met only when there's a sufficient array of activities for someone to engage in along the route or at the stops. So I do support the higher density in nodes and corridors on Lawrence Road, Pleasantburg Drive, Wade Hampton Boulevard, and some areas of Augusta Street. I'm grateful for the edits released on March 15th that included a more breadth of housing, but I am concerned about the changes made to the permissibility of shelter, a place where those needing temporary housing can stay. Under the proposed code, shelter is permitted only in industrial flex, business general, and civic categories. There are 2 shelters in Greenville that have served the people of our community who are experiencing homelessness: the Salvation Army since 1904 and the Greenville Rescue Mission since the 30s. They are both proposed zoned MX2. As I understand, should they improve their facility for their property for their guests, which they might want to do, it is only with special permission from the BZA. So I wish we didn't need shelters. I wish every resident had a safe place to live that they could afford. But the very conditions of our growth, which we are trying to address with this code, coupled with the way we continue to drive demand with every top 10 list we get on, not to mention our state's eviction laws that make it hard for a struggling person to stay in his or her housing, and the fact that each new development eliminates, very sadly, places where chronically homeless people camp, the need for shelter is not going away. So I just want to be sure that our city continues to be a place of compassion that cares for the hurting and supports nonprofit partners who have always been here to help. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the support of everyone, but if we can hold our applause, that would be helpful to the process. Okay. Dolly Heron, Ina Bells, Chris Dover.
Hey, I'm Dolly Heron. I live at 2805 Augusta Street, Greenville, South Carolina. I feel like I'm among a lot of people who know a lot about real estate, and I don't. I'm a teacher. I know about kids, but I also know about my neighborhood. I live on Augusta Road. It's a busy road, but it is a neighborhood. When I moved in between this house, backed up to these houses. It was a neighborhood that the house next to me eventually burned down, and it's been an empty single-family residential lot since then. I'm here to speak about the zoning changes from R6 currently to RNXC within established neighborhoods without real specific notice to the neighbors. I've spoken to a lot of neighbors, they didn't know. I know there are a lot of signs out. I know there are a lot of postcards, but that's a 443-page document, and that's a map that didn't have the roads on it. It took me hours to find my lot, my personal lot, and the one that I was concerned with. I had to find 85, and then I had to find the shape of the Greenville Country Club golf course so I could orient myself and find it. None of my neighbors know what's going on, but it changes a residential lot to a light commercial lot. Setbacks change from 20 feet on the front to 5 feet. The rear setbacks from 15 feet to 4 feet. Side setbacks, 10 feet to 4 feet from my house. This is going to benefit the people that sell the property and the people that develop it. It's going to hurt the neighbors. I think that y'all are for preserving neighborhoods. The city has spent a lot of time trying to do the traffic calming on Augusta Street. Lots of money was spent, lots of research was done. But if you put high density housing right there on Augusta Road again, what's it going to do to the traffic? And the plumbing pipes, some of them are still terracotta. I mean, can we even support that growth right there? I'm just one person. There's a lot of people out there, I think, that don't really know what's going on. There are a lot of people next to the churches on Augusta Street that don't realize that those residential lots have been changed. I've lived here my whole life, as did my grandparents. I've been in my house for 27 years. I raised my children there. I watched my neighbors raise their families there. I watched their kids grow up. I've gone to their weddings. I've gone to their graduations. Now I'm Grand Dolly to my newest neighbors. We are a neighborhood. The kids in the neighborhood come to my garden and work with me. We are a neighborhood. We are on Augusta Road, but we are a neighborhood. There are houses beside this lot, right behind this lot, on the other side.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Please protect. And thank you. And all of y'all.
Tina?
Hey, thank you. Tina Belgi, 2 Cottage Knoll Circle in Greenville. I'm here representing the Greenville Housing Fund as well as our Greenville Affordable Housing Coalition. We are a partnership of over 50 organizations, nonprofit, private, neighborhood leaders, and we want to say a few things. First, thanks to Shannon and her staff, truly tremendous. And some of the things that we commend in the plan are increased density and upzoning, the density and base bonus affordable housing incentive, secondary dwelling units, the removal of some properties through the review process, removal of plan development tool, the use of fees on non-residential development to go towards open space and affordable housing, and then affordable development consideration, the tree fund. And really, they took it even further because during the redraft, they decided to remove the $5,000 per unit fee, which would have made the affordable housing incentive really ineffective, adjusted the AMI guidelines to include averaging, which would be deeper affordability, and as well as higher area median incomes. They added tiering incentives, again, to reach lower affordability. Some comments that remain from our coalition are to take that a little further with 5% at 30% AMI, and we echo comments on the emergency shelter, ADUs, and shared equity on home ownership. I just want to take a minute, though, to address some of the concerns on ADUs I've heard. We're in a housing crisis. We have homes selling at $700,000 to $1 million, right? You can't even enter the homeownership market unless you're making $85,000 a year. Rent up as high as 20% in some areas. Our teachers need houses, our restaurant workers need houses, our young professionals need houses, and our housing supply is often less than 1 month in inventory. Our seniors need houses, and this is where accessory dwelling units are really important. Families are able to live in these areas also to go to good schools. They're now inaccessible because of affordability in some areas. So again, I want to say there also will not be a wave of this. I think people are worried about this happening. They already exist. This is a way of keeping it up to par. We don't have ADU companies or manufacturers at the ready. This is going to be very much piecemeal, and HOAs already have many covenants that restrict this. You can even get together with your neighborhood and put your own restricted deed covenant if you wanted to. So just asking that tons of workshops have already been had around this. The city did their part and a lot of support was for it. So I just remind Planning Commission about that. It really does a lot for affordability and housing supply. And also the majority of the map in our code is single family. It's a lot of yellow, right? So we're having some increases in density, but we're largely keeping the single family character that Greenville has had. This accessory dwelling unit is the way to bring affordability into these areas. It's the one tool we have in this plan. I just think we should complain about affordability and then have no solution to it when it comes to our own backyard. Again, we are so grateful to staff, super grateful to the Planning Commission, and really hope that you take these changes into heart. And we support this code so much and appreciate your work. I know it's been a labor of love and for not just Planning Commission and staff, consultants, but for our community. This is our community, and we want to see it grow and change in a responsible way and one that's going to be better for everybody, equitable for everybody. And I just want to commend everybody here tonight who's here to speak as well, because it takes everybody's voice to make this happen. So thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you. All right. Chris Dover? No? Okay. Debbie?
Hi, I'm Debbie Wallace, Verde Development, also known as VDI, 340 Rocky Slope Road in Greenville. My comments address the draft zoning code of RNXC for Legacy Square with Hollingsworth Park within Verde. I think you've heard from Shannon, the recommendation that staff has, and you've also heard from Inga tonight. I thought that the commission might want to understand a little bit more about why RNXC is not the right code. We have met, when we first took a look at the code in January, we were, operating under an S1 zoning code and had a plan in concept for Legacy Square that was much going to mimic the S1 zoning standards. And so we were really excited about that. And when RXC came out and we were reviewing what impact it might have had, it was clear that we weren't going to be able to continue the development within Legacy Square that currently exists today, which is about 60,000 square feet of office and another 30,000 square feet of ground floor retail. So we've got about 50% of the development done. We've got more work to do. We would like to have a code that will allow us to build out in a very similar fashion where we've got maintained the integrity of the development. RNXC just doesn't do that. And another example is the Y that's there, the salon that's in operation would not be able to exist today under RNXC because of the 4,000 square foot limitation. So we took our concept plan to the leadership organization within the community called the HBOB. You heard from Ing. She spoke on their behalf tonight. We tested our concept with them to see if we could gain some support because there had been a lot of concerns about what we were trying to do in Legacy Square. We got rave reviews in terms of, yes, this is exactly what we're talking about. This would be great for the community, but how can we build it? So this is how we've been able to come together and present to you tonight that there is a like mind between the residents and the developer, which is refreshing. And we would like to have a zoning code that's probably going to be a bit aggressive on paper and use a deed restriction property, if you will, that VDI would voluntarily restrict height, restrict other conditions that might be in the code because there isn't a silver bullet for Legacy Square. It's an important property. A lot of people love it and care about it, and we just want to get it right. So we hope you'll take the recommendation from staff and others, and we would like to see Legacy Square happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Predmore? And behind her, we've got Frank Hammond, Joshua Rodriguez, and Mordecai Shore. Just be on deck if you're out there. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Predmore, and I'm the Executive Director of Greenville Connects, an organization working throughout the Greenville County area to increase transit resources. I'm also the chair of Impact Greenville, which is a coalition of organizations in Greenville working at the intersection of land use policy, affordable housing, and mobility. On behalf of these organizations, I wanted to express my support for the current draft of the Development Code, especially the transit infrastructure requirements for new developments on proposed or current bus routes, the increased density allowed in the nodes and along the corridors, and the permitted accessory dwelling units throughout the plan. One issue that unexpectedly came up in this draft that our group has submitted some comments to you by email about was the requirement that shelters must now get special permission to build or substantially renovate in the zones that they are currently located in. Katie Smith mentioned that just a minute ago as well. City staff have done a wonderful job taking feedback and answering questions and asking some of their own. And all of this made the proposed development code better and stronger to ensure the future of Greenville is the place we all want it to be. This draft will allow for open space, strong transit, and incentives for affordable housing. So thank you all for your work. Thank you to city staff, and thank you for the care for the shared future that we all have.
Thank you.
Frank Hammond, 27 Knoxberry Terrace. I'm a business owner in the city, commercial landowner in the city, and have next Saturday will be my 38th anniversary in the commercial real estate business. Served 4 iterations on the City Board of Zoning Appeals, have started my second term on the Greenville County Planning Commission, and I say that for not to pretend I bring any wisdom or common sense to this discussion, but I do bring a lot of scars and wounds and scratches and scrapes and tears. I actually tried to count the other day how many Board of Zoning Appeals meetings I've been on this side of the table, variances, special exceptions, rezones, neighborhood meetings. I lost count at 100 in the city over 38 years. A lot of that was due to a zoning code that didn't grow, that didn't breathe, that didn't work for the city as it got bigger, better, a more desirable place to be. This new iteration has a lot of wonderful things. I give Shannon and Mary Douglas a ton of credit for their efforts, their team a ton of credit for their efforts. But we've got a lot of work left to do. What What we don't want to see is to adopt a code that still has a lot of work to go before it gets adopted. And I think there's a lot of work left to go here. There's been a ton of work put into it. That's wonderful. But what I would like to request is we take a 90-day timeout on this, have a lot of focus groups. The business community has had 60 days to digest this, 15 days on the latest iteration of it. And we're talking about double the amount of zoning codes, and there's nothing that carries over from the existing code to this code. Nothing. 433 pages of a brand new code. Let's take a little bit of a timeout, a little bit of a breather, take some focus groups, and make this the best code it can be when it gets adopted, knowing it will have iterations to get changed in the future as Greenville changes and grows and we find things in the code. But it's a great opportunity for us to grow. But I would urge this group to recommend to City Council we take a 90-day timeout. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Rudd. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Yasha Rodriguez, and I live in Pettigrew, which for many of those that don't know Pettigrew, yes, there are people that live there, and we are some of them. I just wanted to applaud the city on handling the short-term rental situation here in Greenville. If that goes unchecked, it will lead to touristification and further displacement of residents, which are two things that are very important for me personally. I applaud that handling of the short-term rental situation. There's a growing body of literature that speaks to the effects of outside investment into communities with outside investors purchasing property just for short-term rentals. And, you know, the profit is, of course, notable, but it does lead to touristification and further displacement. So thank you for that. I also want to applaud the city staff for trying to find a solution or presenting at least solutions considering affordability in homeownership, especially in homeownership. Rental, yes, of course, we need that as well. But residential stability and financial stability is only available if you can grow your wealth. And one of the best ways to grow your wealth is homeownership. So thank you again for that. And it's a pleasure hearing you all and hearing all the comments from the public as well.
Thank you. Mordecai Shore?
Can I ask some questions?
No, sir, it has to be part of your time. I apologize.
Just checking.
Nice try, though.
Can we pull up the map for 902 North Church Street, please? My name is Mordecai Shore. I'm with MS Shore Company here in Greenville, South Carolina. It's a commercial real estate company that I've had here for 40 years. Appreciate staff's hard work and appreciate you commissioners considering this. One of the questions is how long has staff studied this code?
I mean, this has been going on for quite a while, but we can try to answer your questions. This is more a chance for you to speak and for us to listen.
The reason I ask, because I concur what Frank said earlier, is that we've really only had 60 days to look at it, and it's a complete change from the current code. There's a lot of details that need to be analyzed. If you have to realize in the commercial real estate field, if we lose one permitted use, we're going to affect the value of a property and the future revenue for generations. And in this particular instance at 902 North Church Street, it's zone C2 now. They're proposing what I would call a spot zoning, which I believe we all know is not necessarily desirable in the current zoning districts. If you zoom out a little bit, you'd see that it should really be an MX2 or 3 instead of a small strip of RNXC. So I think
staff may need to analyze that, and I request a modification at that location for all the way from 902 North Church Street to where MX, the next MX district on down that road. That's a major corridor that doesn't need to be RNXC. And then there's another location at 1300 East Washington Street. Likewise, it's a major commercial corridor that's recommended for RNXC, which should be MX2 or MX3. So again, there's many uses that will not be permitted once this change takes effect. I agree that we probably need to modify the code. I think making things more walkable and more green space are great, but yet we need to be careful about how we affect property owners, their property values, their future revenue, and we need to take a time out. I suggest more than 90 days. I think we should have as much time as staff has had to analyze it.
Thank you, sir.
Before we make a decision.
Thank you.
For your time.
All right, we have been going for 2 hours. So we're going to take a 15-minute break, and we will pick back up at 6:15-ish. Thank you.
We have a hard stuff to sell. I know, that's why I'm.
Oh, the 9th, really?
You know, that's just too long.
Thank you, Shannon.
I suppose you never eat
No, perfect. Anything I did.
I bet not all of them speak.
What?
Okay.
How many more photos do you think?
Hey, thanks for seeing that. Okay, okay. Yeah, no, we're close. I don't know why.
Yeah. We got, we got about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months in. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, now number 16, this meeting. Now, but what? I'm calling up. Some people may not stay either, but sometimes they say I'm gonna speak now. They've already said it. You're welcome.
Is that the most?
Oh, yeah. Weird meat actually.
Believe so. I'm beginning to count.
I want to hit people with it. Oh, okay.
Hot here now.
Maybe clear that a little bit.
Fire.
Anybody want one? Ooh, I'm good. I gotta rinse my mouth out with some water.
Sounds good. Thank you.
My mouth on fire.
You tell me when you're ready.
I didn't eat pizza. I
ready?
can't believe I stood there.
I
and did
can't
not.
either.
I
can't believe I ate it.
Right? Okay.
That was way too.
All right. Thank y'all for hanging out for a minute while we took a break. We will continue with the public portion of the hearing. And next on the list, I'm going to read the next 5 names. Charles Stone, Ryan Dirk, Marklena Widmeyer, sorry y'all, Linda Smith.
Ryan Dirk, CEO, Miracle Hill Ministries, representing our property at 575 West Washington Street. I echo the echoes of thanks to the commission and to staff. Thank you for the hard work you've done on this. There's a bunch of amazing, excellent things in it. A little bit of history. So we have served Greenville since 1937 for 86 years. In 1948, we put our first rescue mission on West Washington Street. And then we moved to our current location on the corner of Washington and Hudson 50 years ago this year, 1973. Today, we serve 150 men each night. When the weather turns cold, we operate Greenville's only permanent cold weather shelter, and our numbers will easily increase to 250. Last year, we served nearly 1,000 unique individuals out of this location. In the new March draft of the code, we are MX2 under special exception rather than a permitted use. Our understanding is that if we had to do a major renovation in the future to serve the citizens of Greenville as we have all these years, we would have to pursue special exception and worry about whether or not we're allowed to serve at all. All we at Miracle Hill and the other service providers providing services to those experiencing homelessness want to do is help those people and help the rest of Greenville. We'd ask that you would protect us by allowing us to have permanent permitted use on our current properties. I want to take a little bit of a left turn and talk about the future. I've said publicly many, many times that I don't think that right now Greenville needs more shelter beds. Certainly we need more services and we need more exits for those that are exiting out of shelters. But there will come a day when Greenville needs more shelter beds to help a growing population. As Greenville grows, so does the population of those experiencing homelessness. And under this new plan, the only permitted placement of a shelter would be in an industrial zone. Miracle Hill's guests and those experiencing homelessness throughout the upstate deserve more dignity and housing and shelter services available to them. They need access to jobs, to transit, to employment opportunities, and we put them in a business park, they're probably going to feel pushed out to the side. I would ask that you would reconsider how shelters are viewed, allow them to be permitted use within the city in many locations, find areas that serve all the citizens of Greenville. If Miracle Hill is not here, if Salvation Army and other service providers are not here to serve, our guests, frankly, have nowhere to go other than Main Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Marcolina. Linda Smith. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
Send it on down. Lord, let the Holy Ghost come on down. We can't have a meeting till the Holy Ghost come. Lord, let it come on down. Thank you all so very much. My name is Marcolina Talbert Wyman. I live at 247 North Rutherford Road, but I have property on 15 Mount Zion Avenue, Greenville, South Carolina. There I was born and raised. Although my granddaughter is 24, I'm 25 years old. Y'all do the new math. The reason I'm here today is because this property has always been home to me. This property is where I was born and raised. It was where my sister raised her family, where my uncle raised his family, and where my son hopes to build and to raise his family.
The reason that I'm here, though, is because over the years, probably over the 40 years, I've heard promises being made that they're going to revitalize this particular area, that we're going to have sidewalks, that we're going to have roads that you actually can travel through. Mount Zion Avenue, only one car can get there, and if you don't have a little car, it's hard for you to even go up that particular road. The water system is bad, and as far as Duke Power, I don't think they've actually had much of a problem, but still, it needs a whole lot of remodeling done to it. My hopes, my desires, and my prayers is that they will be able to keep the single-family homes. This is what I grew up in. This is what everybody in the neighborhood wanted. This is what I hope and pray that it will continue to be. I hope that they do not build any sky rises. I also own property down on Lawrence Road. At one time, we owned, I don't know, probably about 100 acres on Lawrence Road. But I saw where they built big sky-rise properties, and the little houses cannot see over the sky-rise apartments or condos that they have. So my prayer is that we will continue to have the family individual homes. I thank you all for all the work that you've done. I know y'all look tired and sleepy. You want to go home, eat some fried chicken and macaroni and cheese, and so do I. So thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you for your lightheartedness. That was fabulous. Yes,
My name is Linda Smith. And Sharon, thank you and your group for all the work y'all have done. I live at 19 Mount Zion Avenue. 19 Mount Zion Avenue is my home, and when I say it's my home, I was born there. I'm still living there, and I hope when I reside and leave this earth, I'll still be there. I was raised on Green Line, Spartanburg Street community. I have a lot of family members that was on Green Line and that has homes there. The Loves and the Harris and my family. And I appreciate what y'all are doing, but I pray much for Green Line that y'all let the community stay the single dwelling and that y'all do all y'all can to keep affordable houses. I speak for my family and for the community as a whole. And I hope y'all continue to work with us to keep as many families there that can be there. Thank you.
thank you. Martina Miller?
Hi, everyone. My name is Martina Laura Talbot Miller, and I'm a resident at North Rutherford Road in Greenville, South Carolina. But my family also has land on Mount Zion. And I have like this big problem. I'm worried about the residents there. I'm worried about our land there. I'm wanting to know, are we going to be able to keep the single family home? I'm worried about the taxes. I'm worried about, like I said, the elders. Are they going to get pushed out of their homes? We're complaining now, and I mean, we have commercials of homeless and stuff, but yet we're making people homeless. We're raising it so high that they can't afford it. And we're putting people out in the streets. So it's not a matter of just making that area look nice. Anything can look good, but is it also really good for you? Like you can put a coat of paint on something, but do you have love? That neighborhood is our home. Get it, the key word, neighborhood. Our neighbor, this area, hood over your head. It's like having a heart. You understand where I'm coming from? Y'all feeling me in here? Because someone asked me at the last meeting, said, well, I'll see you soon. I say, I see you soon. And it was an elderly lady. She said, if we still have our homes to see you. Some people are walking, riding bus. They don't have transportation because this might be the only area they know and they grew up in. So why not help fix or put together the renters and stuff, fix what they already have, continue to have the people there, have more people to move in the area or from the area, but not raise everything up. Y'all understand? Y'all feel in my heart where I'm coming from, the hurt, the pain? but yet wanting to make things better. Feel me over there? That's all I'll ask for y'all to do, to understand what my heart is. I'm here just like everyone else for the same reason. I want to keep neighbor in the hood. Let's see that. All right, love y'all and God bless. That's at my peace.
Thank you so much. All right, Colleen Christian. And after Colleen, I've got Brenda Duff and Tony Pate.
Good afternoon, or maybe evening, I should say. My name is Colleen Christian. I live at 100 James Street in downtown Greenville, in a historic home built in the late 1800s. I purchased that home when I was 23 years old, so I have lived there quite a long time. I've raised my family there. I have 2 children. Our issue, if you'll pull up 100 James Street and being a historic property, it's currently proposed to put MX3 in my backyard, abutting my property and my neighbor's properties. So, and most of that property on that lot is currently zoned R6. And I'm not sure that that shows, it does show that. So by placing an MX3 right up against an R6 seems to be a complete change of the zone for sure. And also not in keeping with the historic properties that we have there. And we're trying to maintain neighborhoods and maintain historic properties and their significance. And I think this is like a little standalone location that may have been overseen. I think they were talking about it being an entryway to the city, but there are plenty of others. The also interesting thing is that across the other side of West Stone Avenue is another development that's already being proposed and is probably already going to go through under the old development, where they're going to place 65 townhomes there. That is going to be rezoned MX2. But my immediate abutting to my property, they're talking about MX3. And my neighbors, all my neighbors up James Street, you'll see, are getting that same MX3 zone. So consider that little oasis there to be dropped down to an RNB, something without a drive-through, and it's going to be shooting through my backyard, shooting into my house in the evening. I remember when the gas station sat there many moons ago on the corner, and the garbage trucks at 3 o'clock in the morning would come and slam and bang and drop, and I think they got a kick out of how far they could toss it across the parking lot before it landed. So I've been there quite a long time. I'll be telling you my age. I've been there 35 years. I purchased at 23 years old, so I'm invested in the city. I was invested, I had vision at 23 years old. So I hope that you'll consider, and my neighbors as well, the impact this will have on our quality of life. And I thank you. I thank you for your help.
Thank you. All right, Brenda Duff? No? Tony Pate? And after Tony, we've got Sam Dennis and Fran Williams. Name and address, please.
My name's Tony Pate. I live at 1209 Augusta Street, which is between the corner of Church and East Prentice. Kind of don't know where to start except to say thank you. I think Shannon is bucking for a raise, and I think she should get it. All the rest of you, we would all vote yes. It depends on whether you hear us or not. But thank you so much for listening. That really matters. And I've been impressed with what people's opinions were tonight, even if I didn't think the same thing. I just like it that people have shared. So I've just used 5 minutes doing that. But I wanted to say that my block, every house in my block is more than 100 years old. And every house in the block just beyond us, going south on Augusta, is within range of 100 years old. But we're not considered something for the historic review people to look at. There's some really important properties there. The one on the corner of Augusta and Church, which is not my house, You cannot even see it. It's so overgrown. It's owned by a man to whom it was willed, and he doesn't live in Greenville, but he comes to that house. That house was visited by Roosevelt on his whistle stop tour. We have so much history within those few blocks and the ones behind us. Alta Vista is really old. And I don't know who chose the 5 sections that are going to be historic, but I'm really disappointed that Augusta Road is not one of them. My grandparents moved to Greenville in 1882. And my dad, who grew up here, and my mom both, said that the trolley used to go from downtown Greenville to Grove Road and then turn around. That was the end of the circuit. There's a lot to be said for that. And even though I've lived in my house for 42 years, we just love where we are. And all 3 of my children are Greenville residents. All of my grandchildren live here. I'm not going to be here probably in 2040 to see how all this plays out. But my kids are going to be, and my grandkids are going to be. And I want them to have this share your beautiful vision. I love the vision for where we're going. I love looking down the road and seeing where Greenville will be. But I do not want us to forget where we've been. That is just unforgivable. There's so much good here that has happened that you're building on the backs of. And I want that acknowledged in every historic district in Greenville County. Pay attention. I got 8 seconds to tell you. My church, which is Trinity Church of Greenville, and the V between, I'm going to get to see. Look it up. We won the Governor's Award in 2016 for historic preservation. And we're in trouble in the same place.
Thank you. Sam Dennis? Oh, Dennis, maybe. I'm sorry. Sam Burnell Street? Okay, come on up. Go ahead, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Fran Williams. I live at 220 Cumberland Avenue in the Fair Heights community off Lawrence Road. It's an older community in Greenville that was built for returning servicemen and their families to be zoned RHC. In a small house that I built in 2015, I represent other homeowners like me. I support the city's efforts in updating zoning to make improvements in our city and to add control to the proliferation of short-term rentals, which has been facilitated mostly by websites like Airbnb. I also feel that when a city decides to restrict property rights, it should do so in a way that addresses the actual problem and does not harm people who pose no problem. As a retired person, I would like to rent a room in my home as a bed and breakfast in order to make ends meet in retirement. Without this, I will likely have to sell the home I love and that I have built and leave the community I love. This practice has existed for thousands of years, for as long as people have owned houses, and it has never caused the problems of modern-day short-term rentals. Therefore, I'm asking the city to amend the current proposed ban on short-term rentals in the city to provide flexibility for people in my position. I'm making this request for 2 reasons. I'm sure the city is not intending to stop retired people like me from making ends meet. My proposition is actually about affordable housing, not operating a separate business. I'm simply trying to keep my home affordable in retirement. I am a resident and live in the home which would be used. I'm not an outside investor. I will not generate or impact the neighborhood in terms of parking or noise. We haven't heard from other residents like me in this hearing, but I assure you I am not the only person in this position. I'm not alone. The practice is too long-standing for that to be the case. Is the city willing to consider a rewording of the proposed ordinance or adding an exemption for people like me who have been doing this out of necessity for as long as Greenville has existed with no impact on neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Teach me how to say your name. Davis.
Yeah,
Well, that's pretty easy.
yeah, that was handwriting. I'm sorry. That's been a problem forever.
I stink at this.
Yeah. Yeah, so I own 12 Vernell Street. And thank you for taking the time to listen to us all. Learning about the code and seeing the future of Greenville sketched out has been very interesting to me. I'm a bit of a policy nerd, and I've really enjoyed the excuse to read the academic articles and chat about them with fellow citizens. I've emailed a lot of those articles to you, and I hope that you read them also. First off, I'd like to compliment the city staff for working so hard to be responsive to comments, in particular Michael Frigson and Hannah Slice. They have the unenviable task of speaking to many groups with competing interests, and they have been taking on that task with exceeding grace. I've read the code closely and think that overall it is very good. I love the increased density in the hubs, and the ADUs are a great addition. The main problem that I would like to talk about today, however, is that the code could do much more to address affordable housing, because as it is written, it confines growth to too small of an area and doesn't allow for a diversity of housing stock. The most visible way it is trying to add housing is through density bonuses and hubs for developers to provide affordable units. In economic literature, this is called optional inclusionary zoning. There are many articles that show how these policies have a minimal impact, if any impact at all. These go into specifics, but the long and short of the evidence is that what creates high prices is a shortage of housing supply, and adding these bonuses doesn't meaningfully increase supply. A key takeaway from these articles is that even in cities that have stronger inclusionary zoning that require affordable units, the amount of units these policies produce is measured in the dozens, and in order to make an impact, we would need thousands. I genuinely don't think that the authors of this code believe inclusionary zoning to be window dressing, but when you look at the other cities that have tried this policy, that's the undeniable conclusion. According to the economics literature, the best planning practices, the best thing that a city can do to address the affordable housing crisis is to deregulate and allow more supply to meet the demand. By its very nature, zoning is a kind of market regulation, and while I'm not against market regulation per se, this is an example where we're suffering from too little free market rather than too much. Our housing market is not able to respond to the increased demand for housing because the zoning maps we've had in the past, and the one that you have in front of you today, artificially restricts the total supply of housing units. Greenville is not alone in this problem. Economists and planners have been writing about why this happens and what to do for decades. In most cases, and in our case, what the city should do is upzone more land. This means having more land available for denser housing, and I know that density is a touchy subject, but otherwise the limited stock will just go to the highest bidder, and poor residents will be slowly forced further and further away from the town. During the Greenville 2040 plan, the city even produced a map that showed the areas that would be best suited for upzoning. I brought this map, and I think that it was passed around. I would ask that this code be amended to allow at least RN zoning in all of those areas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Davis. No, just- Tiffany Bunch, Coleman Schaus, Bob Urich, Yvonne McMahon, thank you. Is Tiffany here? No? Coleman? I think Coleman left. Bob? Oh, you're passing, okay. Yvonne? Okay, we found one.
Hi, my name is Yvonne McMahon, and I live at 151 Thompson Drive in Laurel Creek. And the reason why I'm here, I'm also here with the president of our Laurel Creek Neighborhood Association. She's also here too. This is my first time coming to something like this, so I don't know the R2D2 or MX3H. I don't know none of that. But y'all gonna see me more at these meetings so I can understand. But where I want to voice my opinion is that, okay, to my understanding that the city want to annex into something, Ridge Road or something, you know. My thing is, okay, why do they have to have new houses in order to get sidewalks? So like the older people that's been there for years and years and years and years, we don't have no sidewalks going down Ridge Road. We even need a stop, not a stop sign, like a light, because they just zoom through there like crazy. And so, the newer houses got them. How come we don't have them? The speed needs to be reduced because sometimes they don't even stop at the stop sign. Now, for what's going on, I'm for it and I'm against it. I'm for it, but if I say, okay, yeah, I'm for it, what can y'all do for us? In the neighborhood, that people that's been there for years and years and years and years. Okay, my daughter was renting. The landlord told her she had to move, Not nothing bad or anything like that. It's just something she wants to do. My daughter could not find housing. 2 months. She had to move back home to Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio. Look it up. You know what it's about. But, make some type of affordable housing for other people. We already do got a mixed income. Some people make money, some people don't, and by you having the other people coming in, they got the money, $1 million homes in this home and that home, you still got to give something for the people that's been there so we can upgrade our homes or make a little bit the road wider where I live on Thompson Drive, because you could barely get 2 cars to go through. So like the young lady had spoken before, I think she left, the neighborhood is our home. So like we all have to be together. So, just don't forget about everybody else. We all got to come together because it's going to do what it's going to do either way it go. And I think that we get more people in the South because I'm gonna tell it like it is. You got climate control, HAARP. And with that, global warming, the South is hot. People from the North.
Thank you. All right. See if I can read these better. Catherine Mullen? Did I get that right? Awesome. And then behind her, Matrline Johnson? I was close. And then Johnny Booker.
Hey, thank you. My name is Catherine Muller, and for the last 29 years, I have lived at 400 East Washington Street, the Davenport, on the corner of Church and Washington Street. And I'm going to be very short and sweet because we've already heard from some of my other neighbors. But I just want to drive home that the Davenport is a residential oasis sitting on a busy Greenville corner amongst commercial buildings. It is, however, a mere 760 feet from the historic Pettigrew District. The Davenport is an important piece of Greenville's history that should not be jeopardized by being classified as something other than the residential haven that it is. Again, I applaud and I support the planning department in your recommendation that this 107-year-old Greenville landmark be zoned RC3. And we just really want to thank Shannon and the Planning Commission for hearing our voice on this. So thank you very much, Shannon.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson? Name and address, please.
Matrline Johnson, 1526 Ridge Road. I came this afternoon, but now it's evening.
How it goes here sometimes.
Yes. I live, again, at 1526 Ridge Road. That's in the county. I am not in disagreement with all of the improvements, all of the planning that the city is doing, but the city is all around Ridge Road. From the end of Ridge Road, all of the apartment and housing to the upper Ridge Road. I'm basically Fair Forest Way and Malden Road. We have issues with the traffic. All of the housing that's coming in and the apartments in the city that's been zoned city, especially even now with Virginia Avenue, Dallas Road, and all of that development that's going to come in there. Most of the developers will tell us they're not going to be coming onto Ridge Road. But there's a saying that the devil is a liar, because Ridge Road has become a pass-through from Malden every which way. We can't have truck and a bus come down Ridge Road without one of them stopping. I was born there December the 17th, 1948. Been there almost 75 years. The no change that I have seen is Ridge Road itself. It's still the same width and length that it's always been. I used to walk that road. I can barely want to drive that road. Where I live is Ridge Road and the corner of Ridgewood. As they're coming up the hill flying, I can barely get out of my driveway without looking multiple times. New development, great, but you got to consider the residents, the road, and what we're having to deal with. I understand it's a state-supported road, and there's issues there. But just consider as new development coming in the city, you almost make me want to be in the city. You heard me almost, but I'm glad to be a county resident of Greenville, South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Johnny Booker? No? There's one on here I cannot read. It is a signature. Jackson, maybe? Okay. Janelle Mimnaz? I'm sorry. This is terrible.
You're an architect.
I know. It's so bad. I feel bad because I hate when people get my name wrong too. Indara Mimnaz? Okay. Sandra Freeman?
It's a great day to be in the state of South Carolina. It's a fantastic day to be here in Greenville, South Carolina. My heart has belonged to Greenville for 73 years, and my heart belongs on Tyndall Avenue, number 31, here in Greenville. Oh, I do need my glasses. There they are. I appreciate everything you've done and you have done, and with all the diligent work you have put into this. Affordable housing is very important, as well as our individual rights. My home at 31 Tyndall has been a daycare center, professional offices, multifamily, and single-family home for over 50+ years with no issues. This property has road frontage on McKay Street and Tyndall Avenue. Zoning was a key factor when I bought this property 26 years ago. Tyndall Avenue has approximately 40 homes on it. We lost a treasured park to develop a new area with large homes. Tyndall Avenue has always been a street with caring friends and neighbors, and thoughtful, and they take care of each other. And that's why Tyndall Avenue is treasured in Greenville. The HOA of Tyndall Avenue does not include the houses on Tyndall Avenue. It only includes the new 18 homes that have been built on Tyndall Park. I support your development code. I think you put a lot of hard work into it. My only exception is I would like my property to continue to allow professional offices and remain at RMB or changed to RNXB in accordance with my adjoining property. Not mine, but the property that does adjoin my property. Thank you. And I think you've done a super job.
Thank you. All right, the last one on the list is Randy Green. Randy Green is not here. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor or opposition to this item? Come on up. Name and address, please.
Start to read from my phone. I'll try to be very efficient here. My name is Dan Barra. I'm the property owner of 601 Buncombe. I work with Pope and Land. We are a commercial real estate developer that has done projects across all major cities throughout the Southeast for the last 5 decades. I've seen the results of many of these initiatives and am actively involved in a similar process helping Cobb County in Georgia. I applaud Shannon's team and all that are involved and all the citizens of Greenville that have brought these documents to where they are today. My property currently carries over its PED designation, but I would like to briefly discuss the Buncombe corridor as you exit the heart of downtown. I'm concerned about the transition from essentially MX downtown to MX2 in one block on one of the most major thoroughfares leading to and from downtown. As you know, there's a project planned roughly 1 block away for a new 19-story residential tower. While there are bonuses to the MX classification, I fear that the base MX2 proposed zoning will not be economically feasible to achieve the desired affordable component to get the bonuses. This will lead to no higher density units being built. I agree with Mr. Davis's comments earlier regarding the supply of housing, and I am concerned that any zoning less than MX3 on that corridor will result in no new residential growth to meet the demand of the city. Please also note that as you go further down Buncombe away from downtown, the zoning steps up to MX3. I'd also like to note a few concerns about both MX2 and MX3. Both restrict no indoor entertainment and recreation use greater than 4,000 square feet. One other note I'd like to add is that there is no outdoor entertainment and recreation permitted for MX2, but it is allowed for all the other MX uses. I hope that can be reconsidered. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else to speak in favor or opposition to this item? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will close the public portion of the hearing. And being that it is 7 o'clock, I think we're going to ask staff if we can do our deliberation continuance to the next public.
April 11th.
Huh? Yep, April.
And under our community code, you are allowed. Next planning commission is for needed for April 4 p.m. The Greenville.
Do we need to take a vote on that, Logan, to do a continuance?
It would be appropriate to vote to continue.
I'll make a motion to continue until April 11th.
Second.
Date, time, and place.
4 p.m. at the Greenville Convention Center.
I'll
second, but I have a question.
Let's vote by roll call.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure, go ahead, sorry.
Is there a reason we're going to the convention center?
That's where it was public notice.
Oh, you've already
Was
done that.
noticed for that, and also space considerations were part of the
I
consideration.
mean, I just love it here. Sorry.
Okay, we have a.
I've been quiet all night.
You have. Okay, we have a motion and a second, I believe, yes? Did we get a second? Okay, let's vote by roll call.
Diane Eldridge. Yes. Mike Martinez.
Yes.
Lynn Soulsby.
Yes.
Jeff Randolph.
Yes.
Derek Underlin.
Yes.
Pam Adams.
Yes.
And Meg Terry.
Yes.
Motion to continue this meeting to the April 11th has passed.
Perfect.
7-0.
So I guess I don't technically need to adjourn, right? Cool, all right. Thank y'all for being here, we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Meg. What a great screen.
I love it when all.
I didn't know it's
What's that?
Tired.
Hey, Shanice.
You.
Where's your daughter?
College of Charleston.